Whenever Ko imagined the world as a fairy tale, he never considered himself the protagonist. However, all that changed when he met an enigmatic, soft-spoken girl. A few days prior, Ko considered the popular and attractive Ryu to be the main character of this world. Surrounding him are 3 girls, all of whom want to go swimsuit shopping with him despite summer being months away. Ko sighs. While Ryu's life seems like a classic sitcom, his has become rather stale and bland. Before high school began, Ko never imagined that life would be this way and that the 3 girls in his life would slowly drift away from him. Azu, his younger sister, has grown to idolize Ryu and call him older brother instead of him. Yuzuki, his childhood friend, used to have a complex about her chest size, but now she weaponizes it to try and win over Ryu's affections. Kureri, his close friend from middle school, used to be an avid reader, but she has drastically changed her outward personality and appearance to try and appeal to him. Though Ko has nothing against them, he wonders if he could have ended up in Ryu's position if he had lived life a little differently. Perhaps he made the wrong dialogue choices growing up. Ko acknowledges that his way of thinking is a little delusional. He simply isn't a main character like Ryu is. He's just a background character living in Ryu's world. That's all Ko is. Ryu asks Shiho, the girl sleeping near him, if she wants to come along. Ryu's rom-com trio isn't limited to the 3 girls. Shiho lazily opens her eyes and blinks. Shiho is Ryu's childhood friend, though Ko notes that her gaze always seems unfocused and unfriendly. She's always had that air of coldness about her, and Ko has never seen her smile or laugh once. Despite not talking to anyone, Shiho is quite popular and disliked by nobody. Her appearance is often compared to the heroine of a fairy tale, and Ko can tell that Ryu likes her quite a bit. In his mind, she is the true main heroine. Ko catches Shiho staring at him, but he chalks it up to his imagination. A few days later, Ko lies down and thinks about how Ryu and the other girls are doing their swimsuit shopping. Not wanting to be lethargic, Ko gets out of bed to do his homework, only to realize that he left it at school. He hurries back to school and arrives after an hour, but upon entering his classroom, he sees that Shiho is still there. He accidentally says her name, which means he has now engaged in conversation. However, he wonders why she isn't out shopping with Ryu and the others. Shiho takes a deep breath, only for Ko to find out that she was just sleeping. Ko shifts his body for a better look to see that she is, in fact, sleeping. Ko checks the time and sees that it is almost sunset. He worries that Shiho might come across someone dangerous on the way home, so he decides to wake her up. Ko leans in closer to wake her up, but a gust of wind blows the curtain over her. Ko tries to remove the curtains, but she accidentally touches a bit of her skin. This is what finally wakes her up. Shiho blinks once and Ko hastily withdraws his hands before he gets accused of something unsavory. He frantically tries to explain that he wasn't up to anything bad. He turns around and tries to run away, and as Shiho gets up to try and chase him, she ends up tripping over her own seat. Ko tries to help her up, and when their hands touch, Shiho exclaims that she's caught him. Her personality does a complete 180. Shiho starts caressing his hand as though trying to confirm something. Shiho is suddenly able to talk with energy and without a hint of nervousness. She reveals that she has a bad habit of suddenly climbing up in front of other people, but she seems to be able to express herself in front of him. This whirlwind chain of events leads Ko to reconsider what he imagined was a fairy tale world commanded by Ryu. Shiho asks Ko if he consider being friends with him. Ko wakes up with the events of yesterday still fresh in his mind. Upon arriving at school, Ko wishes his friend Kishi a good morning. Not long after, Ryu and his harem enter the classroom. Kishi jealously wonders how Ryu seems to be so popular when his only redeeming quality seems to be his looks. Ko wonders about that too, as he thinks that good looks shouldn't be enough to build a harem. Shortly after Shiho arrives, she appears to be back to her usual stoic self. Her beauty is nothing to scoff at either, but Ko has managed to build a friendship with her. Ko considers that he and Shiho live in completely different worlds, and he is careful not to draw too much attention to himself if ever she decides to talk to him. During lunch break, Shiho approaches Ko with an angry pout. She reminds him that they're supposed to be friends, yet he hasn't tried to talk to her at all. However, Ko was just taking into consideration the fact that Shiho is shy and that he doesn't want to talk to her in public. While that may be true, Shiho would prefer it if he did. Nevertheless, she is glad that he just wasn't talking to her because of that. She was afraid that he didn't like that they were friends. Ko reassures her that he doesn't hate her, and that he hopes that they get along from now on. Shiho suggests that they start calling each other by their first names to build a more solid rapport. Shiho tugs at his shirt sleeve and urges him to call her by her first name, so he does. Even though she asks for it, it proved to be too much for her little heart to bear. She promises to call him by his first name once her heart calms down. For lunch, Shiho drags Ko to the back of the school. She notices that all Ko is eating is a melon bun. Upon learning that it's all he ever eats, she offers him a piece of her more balanced lunch. He tries telling her that there is no need to, but she insists and tries to feed him a piece. Ko feels that this is a little too intimate for friendship, but it might be normal for Shiho. He eventually relents and allows her to feed him a piece, but he's too nervous to taste it properly. Shiho starts getting embarrassed by what she just did. She's always wanted to try something like that, and she hopes to do similar things to him in the future. Despite only talking to each other for a day and a half, Ko feels rather at peace with Shiho around. He had resigned himself to an uneventful high school life, but he feels that everything will change now that Shiho is here. Shiho teasingly asks if his heart was pounding when she fed him a piece of her food, and he denies it. Shiho reminds him that her ears can hear everything, which includes his heart. Ko remembers a story that she told him the day before. Shiho has a very impressive sense of hearing, enabling her to pick up on sounds that people wouldn't normally be able to. She explains that each human produces a unique and distinct sound. Gentle people create clear sounds, while scary people produce noise like nails scratching a blackboard. In short, Shiho's hearing allows her to properly judge a person's character based on the strange sound that they emit. This is similar to synesthesia, a condition that allows someone to hear colors. It is a mysterious ability of perception. It is the opposite. As she stated earlier, some people produce terrible noise. She can, for example, hear the grating sounds of lust and jealousy. These things are hard to hear, especially for her. That is why Shiho considers their meeting a fateful one. She is usually hypersensitive when asleep, so she finds it surprising that Ko was able to sneak that close to her before she woke up. Ko thinks that she is exaggerating, but Shiho says that his sound doesn't make her nervous. She compares the sound he gives off to the sound of a tranquil river or the soft chirping of birds, is a sound that she adores. Shiho can tell that Kao has become a little nervous. Kao scratches his head and points out that Shiho is with Ryu more, but she reveals that he gives off an unpleasant sound. Suddenly, they hear footsteps approaching them. Shiho can tell who they are, and she tells Kao that she has to hide from him. Ryu and Azu turn the corner, and they notice both Shiho and Kyu nearby. Ryu becomes angry and asks who Kyu is and what he is doing with Shiho. Ryu accuses Kyu planning something sinister by taking Shiho to such an isolated place. Kyu, on the other hand, is just confused as to why they are both here to begin with. Ryu shakes off Azu and hurries over to Shiho, leaving Azu with a disappointed look. Kyu takes one look at his sister and can tell that she was planning to confess to Ryu. That's why she took him all the way here. Unfortunately for her, Ryo only has eyes for Shiho. Azu mustered all her courage to get this far, and Ko doesn't want to be the reason for her love life to fall apart. He tells Ryu that he didn't lay a finger on Shiho. Ryu doesn't seem to believe him, and Ko once again tells him that he didn't do a thing. However, Shiho starts to heat up, and she feels faint. Ko remembers what she said about Ryu, that he sounds dreadfully unpleasant. It's at such a level that his mere presence is enough to disturb her. Ko blocks Ryu's arm and volunteers to take Shiho to the infirmary. But Ryu accuses him of making her sick in the first place. He again commands Ko to step aside, but Ko stands his ground. When Shiho tries to go to the infirmary on her own, Ryo asks Azu to take her there. Ko tries to reason that Azu has something important to tell Ryu, but he refuses to listen. Azu reluctantly does as she is told, and she guides Shiho to the infirmary. Ko makes it his duty to protect Shiho as much as possible. He asks Ryu why he is interfering so much, even though he and Shiho aren't dating. It is solely his duty to protect her. He claims that she is sickly and a loner, which only he understands. Among heaven and the earth, he alone is the honored one, apparently. Ko almost recoils in disgust. He knows for a fact that every word coming from Ryu's mouth is a lie. He couldn't be more incorrect about Shiho. Shiho is shy and nervous, but she is far from helpless. She can smile and laugh just like any other girl. Ko now sees Ryu for what he really is. A self-righteous, holier-than-thou protagonist, who thinks that the world revolves around him. He is a good guy, but he's also a bad guy. He refuses to let Ryu stick around with Shiho. His issue now is to find a way to defuse the situation, and he plans to do so by erasing himself from the narrative. He knows that Ryu is wary and cautious of him because he intruded and made himself a threat. The solution is simple. Ko must appear insignificant in Ryu's eyes. Ko takes a deep breath, and he prepares to create a compelling narrative that will allow Ryu to quote-unquote defeat him. Ko claims that he was only trying to confess to Shiho. His gambit pays off. Ryu now assumes that Ko's romantic pursuit failed, and he becomes more sure of himself. Ko continues to play to Ryu's ego by pretending that he is completely out of Shiho's league. Everything is going according to plan. Ko is completely immersed in his role as a mob character. Ryu, confident that Ko no longer poses a threat, extends a hand in friendship instead. With how things played out, Ko is sure that Ryu will never bother Shiho again. Ko is incensed that Ryu didn't even bother to remember his name. He accepts his hand in friendship regardless, and the situation seems to have resolved. Ko keeps smiling until Ryu is out of sight. He went through something humiliating, but it is worth it if he can secure Shiho's relative freedom. Ko pounds his fist into the pavement. Though acting like a mob character worked, it was still a shameful display. The next day, Ryu begins interacting with Ko, evidently a result of their earlier interaction. Ryu asks him why he didn't ask Shiho out to lunch, and Ko claims that he didn't want to trouble her if possible. Shiho wanted to talk to Ko several times, but in order to avoid raising suspicion, Ko began to avoid her. Though effective at keeping Ryu at bay, it is at the cost of Shiho's feelings. That afternoon, Ryu takes the time to say goodbye to Ko. The day is finally over, and Ko hopes that Ryu will be less vigilant tomorrow, especially since he supposedly doesn't pose a threat. Ko has always been rather uncomfortable about being a background character. It's so bad that he doesn't even feel like the main character of his own life. He's always considered himself a prop in someone else's story. It only became worse as he entered high school and he became estranged from the girls he was close with. Ko always wondered why he led such a boring life, and he concluded that he was just a side character in Ryu's story. Ko quietly accepted his role as a stepping stone to help Ryu shine. The story would supposedly be about 3 girls trying to vie for Ryu's affections, even though he only has eyes for his quiet childhood friend. Ko even came up with a title for it. Ko knows that the situation itself sounds ridiculous, but all 3 girls, Azu, Yuzuki, and Kirori, met Ryu during the entrance exam, and their personalities changed drastically. However, if one were to consider that Ryu really was the main character, then all 3 girls have no hope of winning since Shiho appears to be the main heroine. However, Ko has made it his mission to protect Shiho, and in order to do that, he has to stall the story for as long as possible so that she doesn't end up with Ryu. Even though Shiho wants to talk to him, Ko is cautious not to raise Ryu's suspicions. While deep in thought, Ko suddenly hears a familiar voice. He turns around and sees Shiho in trouble. Shiho explains that it was her first time on the bus. She knew that she needed money, but she was in such a rush to run after him that she forgot her wallet at school. She thanks Ko for his help and calls him a hero, but he considers himself more of a mob character. Shiho thinks that he's just being modest. He's a genuinely nice person. He just chooses not to accept that he is. She tells him that it's okay to give himself some credit every now and then, and if he won't, then she will. She promises to find good things to say about him, and all she asks is that he stop calling himself a mob. It's almost as if every protagonist is hardwired to have low self-esteem. She really believes that Ko is a good person, which is why she wants him to at least believe in himself. Though Ko can't help but feel like a mob, Shiho's words of encouragement make him reconsider that notion even if just a little bit. Shiho arrives at Ko's house for a visit. She shows herself into his living room, and Ko encourages her to take a seat while he gets them some snacks. Shiho asks when his parents will be coming back, as she wants to introduce herself as her good friend. Ko doubts that she could even do that, given how shy she is, but she insists that she'll be able to. He tells her that his parents are currently out on a business trip, which Shiho finds a bit disappointing. She feels bad that Ko is always alone, so she offers to spoil him whenever he'd like to be spoiled. Even though Shiho tries to act like an older sister, Ko can see plain as day that she's more of a younger sister. Still, he appreciates her concern, so he takes her up on her offer. Though Shiho is pretending to be his older sister, he just can't see it. He ends up drawing comparisons between how Shiho is acting now and how Aizu used to act. It is strangely comforting for him. After finishing the snacks, Shiho moves on to the most important part of a home visit. She asks Ko for directions to his room, and she fearlessly charges to the 2nd floor. She discovers that his room is filled with shelves lined with books. She asks him if he likes reading books, and he replies that he does. Shiho remarks that she doesn't usually read any herself, as she often watches anime or plays games instead. She does notice that Ko doesn't have any games at all. He apologizes for the boring room, though Shiho doesn't see why that is worth apologizing for. She doesn't think that the room is boring at all. She's genuinely interested in him, and she wants to know what kind of person he is. If he genuinely thinks that the room is boring, then all they have to do is make it fun. She offers to bring some games and other curiosities over, and Ko looks forward to it. However, he points out that they have midterms in 2 weeks, so playing games doesn't seem like a good idea. Shiho avoids meeting Ko's eyes, as though she were trying to run away from her responsibilities. She exclaims that it's a student's job to have fun, and she outright refuses to compromise her gaming time for something as trivial as an exam. Shiho suggests that she might pay more attention to her studies if Ko teaches her. However, fear and doubt cloud Q's mind, believing that it isn't his place to be teaching the main heroine to begin with. Q closes the curtains, as if setting the thoughts aside. He goes along with Shiho's studying plan, though he is reluctant to do so at school for fear of provoking Ryu. Before he can say another word, Shiho's sharp ears pick up the sound of footsteps. To her knowledge, Ko lives alone, but she can clearly hear the sound of a girl approaching the door. As a result, Shiho calls him a cheater. Ko doesn't even know what he did. Shiho pouts and calls Ko a cheater. He doesn't know what she's talking about, but it occurs to him that she previously believed that he lived alone. It's easy to see that Shiho was mistaken in her belief, as Ko hadn't mentioned that Azu was his little sister. He tells her to relax, and he heads off to fetch his sister. Ko asks Azu for a moment of her time so that he can introduce her to the friend he has over. Azu feels a little bothered, but she plays along. She enters his room to greet their guests, but she is shocked to see Shiho standing there. The two are mutually surprised to see each other, but Shiho somehow still believes that Azu is his girlfriend. Ko realizes that Shiho is still misunderstanding somehow, and even Azu is a little confused as to how Shiho arrived at that conclusion. Kao explains that they're step-siblings, but Shiho continues to believe that she's his girlfriend. What in the world is going on inside that head of hers? Q, realizing that he can't change Shiho's mind on his own, asks Azu to clear things up on his behalf. Azu bluntly tells Shiho that they're just family, nothing more. This isn't that kind of manga. Shiho finally takes the time to listen to reason. She observes that they don't seem that close at all. After they tell her once more that they're just siblings, Shiho buries herself in Ko's bed out of embarrassment. Shiho grabs a pillow and runs out of the house, turning down Ko's invitation to walk her out. She ends up tripping down the stairs off-screen. Later, Ko returns to his room, lamenting that he is now one pillow down. Azu asks him if Shiho is okay, and he tells her that Shiho's mother will pick her up. Azu questions Ko regarding his relationship with Shiho, as she hadn't realized that the two were already so close. The conversation turns stale, which is something that has been happening for the past 2 months. Suddenly, Azu asks him if Ryu knows about this situation. Kao realizes that he was too short-sighted. He was aware of the love dynamic between Azu, Ryu, and the others. Now that she knows that Q and Shiho are close, she has a chance to upset this dynamic. However, Kao doubts that Ryu would simply give up on Shiho just like that. The chances are high that he'll try to pursue Shiho even harder than before. Ko begs Azu to keep his relationship with Shiho a secret, as he doesn't want Ryu to find out at all costs. Azu tries to get her brother to calm down. She doesn't know why he's making such a fuss, but if he wants to keep this a secret, then she'll happily do so. The fact that Shiho was here doesn't change a thing for her. In the end, Azu's goal is, and always has been, to make Ryu fall for her. Ko could hear the truth and sincerity behind her words. Unlike Ko, Azu is facing her problems head-on. He apologizes to her for misunderstanding her intentions, but she doesn't get why he's saying sorry. Ozu returns to her room and encourages Ko to do his best. Though he considers himself a failure as a big brother, he hopes Ozu finds all the happiness in the world. As Ozu shuts the door behind her, she is surprised that Ko isn't mad at her. She said some hurtful things to him in the past, but he continues to act like a proper big brother. Prior to the marriage between Ozu's father and Ko's mother, Ozu had a biological older brother. She trusted him with her life, and he was always by her side. She relied on him more than anyone else in the world. One day, her brother died. The young Azu kept waiting for him to come home, but she couldn't understand why he never came back. She began to blame herself for why her brother wouldn't return. Azu asked her father if her brother would come back if she behaved like a good girl, but he couldn't bring himself to answer her. From that moment on, it was as if time stopped for Azu. Her body's growth practically stagnated. As if in response to her heart, when her father remarried, he had hoped that it would serve as a turning point for her. His hopes did not come to pass. Azu gained Ko as a big brother, but as time passed, she felt that he didn't properly fulfill her ideal. A sense of discomfort began to brew, and she soon began to think that Ko wasn't her destined big brother. Not long after, a young man physically resembling her great brother appeared. Though Azu did not hate Ko by any means, he was dreadfully overshadowed by Ryu. Azu felt an irresistible force pulling her towards Ryu to the point that nothing else mattered. Azu wonders what would happen if she told Ryu about Q and Shiho, not that she actually do it. However, she does start to wonder if Q will start spoiling her again like he used to. The thought is almost tantalizing, but she suddenly hears him telling her to do her best. All schemes and plots melt away from Azu's mind. She walks back to her room in her rabbit slippers and shuts the door behind her. She promised not to say anything, and she intends to keep that promise. While Shiho is busy playing on her phone, Ko brings up a really crazy idea. They should start studying. Shiho explains that she's using an educational game to learn while raising a digital horse, but Ko was thinking that they should study using their actual learning materials. Shiho shrugs her shoulders. She hates studying and thinks that it is completely useless. If she was going to do something meaningless, then she might as well play on her phone. That way, she'll have more fun. Ko tries to tempt her with the offer of some cake. Shiho's mouth waters just imagining what could lie inside the box. Shiho realizes that she is being baited into studying, and she pulls her hand away. Shiho is worried that Ko might start disliking her if she acts sloppy. But he could never dislike her. He asks her if there's something she doesn't understand from the learning materials, and she replies, everything. They have to start from the beginning. After a while, Shiho brings up the fact that they don't talk at school. Ko apologizes and explains that he can't risk attracting Ryu's attention. Shiho understands that this is all for her sake, so he happily endures it. More importantly, she likes the cake. Ever since Ko encountered Ryu behind the gym, he has been relentlessly interfering with him. This has taken a toll on Shiho's anxiety, but there is little Ko can do. Shiho asks that in exchange for not talking at school, she wants Ko to pay a lot of attention to her after. Ko promises too. He feels at ease just having her by his side. Ordinarily, if a girl told him that he was more than a mob character, he wouldn't believe it. But now he can accept that feeling wholeheartedly. Shiho is a blessing. The days turn into weeks as Ko and Shiho study for their exams. Finally, the day of their midterms arrives. Ko mouths to Shiho, wishing her the best of luck, which encourages her to do her best with what she was able to study. A few days later, Shiho receives her test results. She slowly opens the fold on her paper and is relieved to see that she passed. She looks at Ko and he responds with a smile. A gust of wind blows the curtain over Shiho's head again, and she remembers the first time they truly met. While Ko comforts Kishi over his failing grade, Shiho taps Ko's back. Shiho holds up her exam paper and is surprised to see that she scored 72 points. He was almost certain that she would fail. Shiho boasts that she can pass tests just fine if she tries. Ko laughs and commends her on a job well done. Shiho twirls her hair, remarking that she was able to do her best because he cheered her on. Shiho remembers that she has to brag to her mother about this, so she leaves to make a quick call. She also wants to celebrate with Ko. Ko thinks about celebrating at her favorite cake shop near the station. However, as he turns around, he notices everyone staring at him. It was at that moment that he knew that he had messed up. Kishi asks Ko when he got so close to Shiho, especially since he's never seen her smile like that before. The class begins to murmur and gossip about the possible relationship Jai and Shiho have. Things go from bad to worse when Ryu himself grabs Ko by the shoulder. Ko follows Ryu to the music prep room. He takes a deep breath and focuses. He is a Ma character. He is an NPC. He enters the room and asks Ryu what's going on. Ryu takes a seat and asks him what he did to Shiho. Ko explains that he just asked her about her test score and that she was happy that she got a great one. Ryu isn't buying it. He knows that Shiho only smiles at people she trusts. Even Ryu has only seen her smile once as a kid. Even then, he believed that it was because he was her childhood friend and that he was special. Yet for some reason, Q was able to make her smile. In other words, Q's romantic pursuits have paid off, which means that Q is now a threat. Q tries to play dumb about the whole thing, but Ryu's eyes are sharp. He always gets the cold shoulder from Shiho, yet he can see that she has warmed up to Q. Ryu blames himself for neglecting her. Ko can tell that this is spiraling out of his control. He bumps into a metronome, which conveniently adds to the tense situation. Ryu declares that he is no longer satisfied with being Shiho's childhood friend. Now he too has feelings for her. This is the worst-case scenario that Ko has been trying to avoid. From now on, Ryu is going to put the moves on Shiho as a man. It's now a showdown between them. Ko tries to think of a way to protect Shiho. Suddenly, someone calls his name. Before Ko leaves, Ryu gets his name. For real this time. He extends his hand, but this time it isn't as a friend, but as a rival for Shiho's affections. Ko steps down from the bus with a look of regret on his face. Earlier, Ryu declared that he would confess to Shiho during the school trip. Ko tries to dissuade him as he feels that it's a little too soon. He values getting to know the other person more before taking that big step, but Ryu has been Shiho's childhood friend from the beginning. He knows her well enough, or so he claims. Ryu already considers Ko his rival in this endeavor, so he expects him to face him fair and square without resorting to underhanded tricks. Ko tries in vain to stop him from pushing through with his confession plan, but Ryu has already made up his mind. He turns around and challenges him to a contest to see who Shiho will pick during the school trip. Ko regrets his choice of words, as it did nothing but stoke the competitive flames in Ryu's heart. His timidity and passiveness have proven to be his downfall. His thoughts were duller and foggier than usual, but Ryu was completely sure of himself from the beginning. It appears that the plot is pushing Ryu forward while side characters like Ko will be left in the dust. It was his failure, and he wonders how he should face her. Ko faces her at the front steps of a winding staircase. He asks her what she's doing here, and she tells him to sit down. Ko obediently sits on a nearby bench, and Shiho comforts him, even though she doesn't know what he's upset about. What she does know is that she is by his side. She asks him to tell her all that happened because he is important to her. Ko is mesmerized that she can somehow understand him without him having to say a word. She always seems to know just what to say at just the right time. The gentleness is almost overwhelming. Ko tells Shiho that he talked to Ryu shortly after she left. She immediately figures out that Ryu intends to confess to her based on the fact that Ko seemed hesitant and that she already has a good idea about Ryu's feelings. She isn't as dense as Ryu. She knew that this day would come eventually, even though she's been trying to tell him in her own way that she isn't interested in him. He either didn't realize it or chose not to realize it. However, now is the time for her to face him properly. Ko blames himself once more for underestimating Shiho's resolve. He apologizes to her and reveals that he tried to act on his own to stop her from being involved with Ryu. But now he offers any help that he can give her for the sake of their friendship. Shiho tells him that all he needs to do is be by her side. That's more than enough for her. All she wants is to enjoy the school trip together. More importantly, she had a party about getting 72 points on the exam, and he didn't come by. For his punishment, she's going to play with him until his face turns red for embarrassment. With this, the story has shifted in another direction. The story reaches its climax. Ko waits by a tree until Shiho, sweaty from the heat of the sun, arrives. He doubts that a straw hat would be enough to shield her from the sun, but he thinks it suits her. Shiho's mom also seemed to think so, remarking that only pirate captains and her looked good enough. However, because Shiho easily gets sunburned, she is forced to wear her gym jacket, worsening the effect of the heat. She wishes that she could have just worn a sleeveless red vest, but Ko warns her that they don't have the copyright to do that. Ryu watches enviously as Ko and Shiho get along. When Yuzuki and Kirori ask him what's wrong, he claims that it's nothing. As they chase after him, Ozu remains behind. She makes eye contact with Ko before following the two girls. Ko boards the bus and looks for his seat out of 4. Ryu is seated a few rows behind him. Shige wanted to sit next to Q if the seats weren't assigned, but he tells her that they usually are. The teacher passes around a seating chart, and just as the plot gods dictated, Shiho and Ryu are seated next to each other. Shiho almost expected as much. Shiho approaches the teacher and asks to be seated elsewhere on account of her motion sickness. Q is impressed that Shiho managed to find a way out of that situation on her own. He sees Shiho's hair bouncing around towards the front of the bus, and he smiles. Azu ends up being the one sitting next to him. She asks to switch places so that she can have the window seat, and this cheeky, selfish side of her is something that Kao has sorely missed. The bus ride towards the venue proceeds in relative silence. Azu suddenly speaks up and tells him that Ryu has been in a rather foul mood lately. He no longer responds properly to conversations, and he seems to have a rather hesitant air about him. She asks him if he knows the reason why, as it seems to be linked to his relationship with Shiho. Ko is surprised that he and Shiho seem that close to her, and Azu reveals that there is actually a rumor going around class. Apparently, Shiho is often seen stealing glances at him, and Ryu takes notice of this. Just as Azu expected, Ryu likes Shiho, not her. Azu begins to become painfully aware that there is no place for her in Ryu's heart, and she questions why she fell in love with him in the first place. She tells Ko that there is an old legend that, if you confess to someone during the camp, you are likely to succeed. Azu has prepared feverishly for this moment. She prayed at the shrine, purchased a love charm, and sought good luck from an online fortune teller. Ku gives her a gentle nudge of courage, but perhaps deep down, Azu already knows she is walking towards crushing defeat. While preparing for the class luncheon, Kishi asks Ko if he knows how to cook, since he and Akira have supposedly never done it before. Akira doesn't appreciate being lumped in with him. Ku accidentally drops an onion and Shiho picks it up. Ko is surprised to see her, but his friends tell him that she's been there the whole time. He asks her if she's been behind her this whole time, and she bashfully hides behind his back. Kishi and Akira are rather jealous of him. Not long after, Ryu and his harem arrive, and he shoots Ko and Shiho a rather nasty glare. He claps his hands together and assigns everyone their roles. He and Yuzuki are in charge of the actual cooking, while Kuriri will assist them. He assigns Kishi and Ko the task of cooking the rice. While all he allows Ko to do is start the fire, Ryu spins around and asks Shiho to have Azu help her peel the vegetables. He shows genuine concern for her safety, but to an almost smothering degree. Out of rebellion or spite, Shiho latches onto Ko's arm, and she makes sure that Ryu can see her. Ryu says Azu's name, and she follows without a word. Azu walks over to Shiho so they can wash the vegetables. However, Shiho shows up with some soap and a sponge. When she nearly soaks a potato with soap, Azu takes charge of the cleaning instead, and she asks her to peel the vegetables instead. Unfortunately, Shiho has never heard of a peeler before. Azu hands her a peeler, but Shiho is still clueless about what to do. Azu asks Shiho if she knows how to cook, and Shiho claims that she does, since she watches her mom do it every morning. Azu has quite the problem on her hands, and she doesn't know how to solve it herself. She rushes over to Ko and seeks his help. He points a finger at Shiho and exclaims that she can't do anything. Ko agrees to take Shiho off her hands, but he's worried that this will anger Ryu. Azu reassures him that something as insignificant as this won't annoy him at all. Thus, Azu has been moved to the fire-starting team with Ko. Moreover, Ko notices that Azu no longer sees Ryu as an infallible human being, and he realizes that this is something extremely significant. Shiho playfully calls Azu Nayan, another certain twin-tailed little sister character. Azu accepts the nickname, and she runs off to prepare the vegetables. Shiho asks what she should do, but since Ko has already started the fire, he tells her that all she should do is add wood. Shiho nearly burns up just standing next to the fire, so Shiho gives her proper guidance and instructions so that she won't hurt herself. She accidentally gets soot on her fingers after Ko forgets to give her some gloves. He tries to look around for a towel to wipe them with, but Shiho playfully pretends to wipe them on his shirt instead. Suddenly, Ryu enters the scene, visibly angry after Azu reassured them earlier that he wouldn't. Ryu wants to know what Shiho is doing here, even though he told Ko to handle this on his own. For the first time, Shiho loudly sighs to express her annoyance. Yuzuki and Kurori come to find him. Prompting Ryu to return, the group partakes in the fruits of their labor. Kishi thanks Yuzuki for the meal, though she says Ryu did most of the heavy lifting. Hanashiki likes it so much that he asks for second. Ryu asks Shiho what she thinks of the curry, but she remains silent. Yuzuki and Kurori chime in and explain how good it tastes. Ryu would love to hear Shiho's opinion on it, but all she can say is that it tastes ordinary. After finishing their meals, the group works together to clean up their respective stations. Shiho joins Kyu to help him clean up the firewood, which ends up drawing Ryu's attention. Suddenly and unexpectedly, Azu comes to their rescue. She reveals that she was the one who instructed Shiho to join Kyu, as she viewed fire starting as more challenging than peeling some vegetables. Furthermore, the firewood needed is quite heavy for a single person to handle. She questions why Ryu had cooped dude on his own to begin with. Azu takes it a step further, pointing out that Ryu has been acting rather strange lately. As she turns around and walks away, Kyu can see that the gears of fate are turning. Ryu admits that he was acting weird, and he storms off. Slowly and surely, Ryu is being driven into a corner.